everyone. Welcome back to the Concussion Discussions series. I am your host, Amy Zellmer from Faces of TBI, and this series is brought to you by Integrated Brain Centers. Today, I am here talking with Dr. Deborah Zelinsky from the Mind-Eye Institute, and I'm really excited. We're going to be talking about convergence insufficiency and a 20th century diagnosis. So I'm so happy to have you here. It's been a few years since I've chatted with you, so thank you for being here, Dr. Zelinsky.
Well, thank you, Amy, for having me.
So this whole series was created by specific questions from people in my group. And one of the topics that comes up a lot is convergence insufficiency. Like, what is it? What does it mean? What can we do about it? And I'm like, I know just the person to talk about it. So, Deborah, I'm going to let you kind of take over and let's dive into this topic.
Well, first we have to know what convergence is, and then what triggers it. And then we can explain what convergence insufficiency is and what we do. Convergence itself means converging your eyes, pointing them inwards at a target and fixating on the target. So it's done at a conscious level where you say, I want to look at something, and therefore I'm intentionally making my eye muscles pull and look at it. That's convergence. And it only happens after you decide on something to bother looking at. So there's a lot of mental decisions that go on. So if I have a pen like this and I want to converge on the tip of it because my doctor says, look at the tip of the pen and follow it, watch it like that, you can watch the eyes come inward. But when you have children, sometimes they don't want to bother putting the energy into converging. So I am capable of converging, but it hurts at a certain point, way up here. I don't want to do it anymore. So you'll get some children who, they can converge if they choose to, but then when it's here, they say, it's a little bit hard and I don't care, so I won't converge. So if you watch my eyes, you'll see them converge, all the way in, way in. Or I can say, it's hard, I don't want to. And now my eyes don't converge. So convergence insufficiency means that you're not sufficiently converging, that you're not doing a good job of it. But there's so many factors that is based on. At the Mind-Eye Institute, we look at what is the brain doing to process before the convergence. Because if there's a problem further up the line, then you're going to have an issue with convergence, but it won't be because the muscles don't work. It's going to be because the person is either deciding it's too much effort, or they think the pen is way in the back. I think the pen is 10 inches away, so I'm converging 10 inches away, but the pen is really 6 inches away. Now I have convergence insufficiency. Or besides misjudging space, they could be thinking of something and daydreaming. So there's so many different reasons why. Or they can have a nutritional imbalance, or they've eaten too much sugar and they're busy and they're not able to converge and maintain fixation. Just like if an adult has too much coffee and they're jittery. So there's many different aspects of convergence. When I give examples, I talk about a restaurant because there's parts of a restaurant that you see, like the waitress bringing you the food, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff happening in the background that you don't see. So if your food doesn't get to you on time, or it comes out cold, you can blame the waitress, but you might not realize that maybe the dishwasher was broken and they had to wait to clean some dishes, or maybe they ran out of an ingredient. There's so many things behind the scenes and the same with convergence. The convergence is the final end result of a lot of different activities. And if somebody's mind is internally daydreaming, they will not bother converging.
So what are some of the ways a person who might have convergence insufficiency, what are some of the things they might notice are kind of going on with them?
Well, their attention will often be limited. So the parents will see children with convergence insufficiency that aren't able to sit and look at a book for a long time. Or if they do look at the book, their eyes will bounce around and they won't get details. They'll just get the big picture. Or they'll be stuck on one or two details and lose the big picture. So they might not finish their homework. It would be hard to plan time to do the homework. And if they have math problems and they have convergence insufficiency, they might use the side of their eye instead of the center of their eye to look at it. And they might mix up a dividing sign and a minus sign, or a plus and a minus. Or if you're glimpsing, you might read a word like form and from. They look almost the same.
Mm-hmm.
Or you might not catch the word, there and there, THERE and THEIR. So a lot of words seem similar. And if you're using the side of your eye to just glimpse them quickly, you may not catch the nuances.
Would that be, so I remember I had, in vision rehab, I was given a piece of paper and told to read out loud the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I read it, she's like, okay, now do that without moving your head.
Mm-hmm.
So I was literally doing this as I read instead of moving my eyes. Is that what that would be, or is that a different condition?
That's a different movement.
Okay.
Because that would be more saccadic dysfunctions. There's a lot of different kinds there's actually 5 different kinds of eye movements. So one of them is convergence, and that's just looking closer and farther. Another one would be pursuits, which would be tracking something that's moving smoothly with the center of your eye. So that eye doctors will have you look at a thing and they'll move it around and say, follow this. And what you were describing is jumping your eyes from place to place to place. So a really good reader will pull their eyes out a little bit to grab like a chunk of words.
Mm-hmm.
They'll read with the edges of their eyes, and then when they hit something they want to detail about, they'll pull their eyes in to look at the word specifically. So there's a combination of convergence to look at specific words, and they call them saccades to move your eyes from place to place to place.
And so that would be, so going back to convergence, that would be like when I would be reading my computer screen and then look down at my phone, and it would take me a minute to readjust. So that would be more in line with what we're talking about.
A little bit. That's a combination also of a saccade and convergence. But yes, that's more in line. The shifting of gaze from place to place is the saccade. But once you shift it, then you converge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that, her bringing that little pen with the ball on top, and it was so hard. I remember my eyes just like, they just didn't quite know what to do, and it hurt. And I think I probably did give up a little after a while too, because it hurt. It was really painful, actually.
Yeah, that's when people work outside of a tolerance range. It's hard. The little pen with the ball on top is called a wolf wand, and it's named after Bruce Wolf, who I got the pleasure of knowing way back in the 80s.
So what are some things you're going to look at, and when you see patients that have a convergence insufficiency, what are things you're looking at, and how are you going to help them?
Well, convergence is what we're looking at is how their brain is processing information through their eyes and their ears. So if their eyes and ears are not connected with each other and synchronized, then they're going to have a problem because it's going to be confusing. If they're confused, they're not going to be actively dealing with what's in front of them. So what we're looking at is twofold. One is what the internal processing is like, how they visualize. Let's take reading for an example, because convergence is different with different scenarios. So if you're reading, what we're looking for is what you're thinking about while you're reading, how you plan where to move your eyes while you're reading, and then how you deal with the content that you're reading. So you can have a child who's reading word by word by word, and so much attention is on their actual eye movement of here's the next word, where's the end of the line, oh, here it is, now where's the next line, there it is. Then they lose the ability to comprehend what they're reading. So we're looking at how much effort is put in the eyes and how much is automatic, kind of on autopilot.
Yeah, I remember having that problem. I would be reading and all of a sudden be like, I have no idea what I just read.
Yeah, that's happens a lot. And that's usually because the actual eye movements require too much mental energy. And another way people converge is by thinking of something. If you picture in your mind trying to remove a sliver out of a child's finger and you visualize that, your eyes will converge. And if you visualize being out, on a ship and on the ocean and looking around the horizon, your eyes will diverge just by thinking about it. Mm-hmm. So you can do convergence, divergence activities without that pain of follow this and look at this. You can do it by simply asking people to think in terms of details or think in terms of concepts. So one of the things we do at Mind Eye Institute is we take eye exams and we turn them into brain exams, because the eye is an actual piece. It's an extension of the brain.
Yep.
That's so neat, because most people don't realize how your eyes are not only an extension of the brain, how they're linked with so many brain functions. You go to a movie and you watch something sad and you can cry just from seeing it. Or you can see an accident on the highway and just cringe, because the eye is so connected with emotional centers in the brain.
Yeah.
It's connected with posture centers. So you'll get a lot of kids who slouch in school, or their chin position's funny, or their head is tilted. And they do that to make their eyes and ears synchronize. But if the teacher makes them sit up straight, now they can only listen or watch, but not the two together. Mm-hmm. So you asked what we would do with the patient. So we would be assessing, the posture centers and connections in the brain, the thinking and visualization abilities, judgment of space, and we would be putting glasses on to synchronize the way that they perceive space through their eyes and their ears, and we help them learn how to control the eye muscles at a more automatic level. But we would do it through thinking rather than eye muscle activities.
And I think that's what's so fascinating about what you do. You incorporate sounds and the vision, and you use, it's bell therapy. Is that the right word?
It's a Z-Bell test.
Yeah. I knew it was something with bells. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and how you incorporate the sounds and the eyes and what you were just saying? Like, if that kid has a head tip, and I see this, I had a head tip myself, and it was because I was trying to compensate.
But when you're testing eyes, the way that testing was invented in the 1800s, that is still used today, is looking at a letter on an eye chart with your head straight. But most kids now, they're texting on their phone, so their head is usually down. They're looking at laptops, they're looking at phones, and their head is down. They go for an eye exam and their head is up and looking straight ahead. And then the optometrist is asking them to tune out all of the backgrounds, because we'll dim the room down and we're just going to have a brightly lit screen that's flat, and you're going to look just at a little letter. And when you're looking at that letter, if you can see it, great, then you don't need glasses. But if the patients we see at the Mind Eye Institute are usually patients who see great far away, but the side vision is not processing properly. So it's either hypersensitive or hyposensitive or a combination. Mm-hmm. And therefore, their convergence is disrupted because they don't have the spatial cues. But your question is about how we link the eyes and ears. When you listen to something, you picture space around you. So if a teacher is talking and you hear their voice, you're going to turn to where they are. If you can't judge where they are quickly, then it's going to take effort and time and energy to move around and find them. Now with COVID, it's so different because so many people are wearing masks that you hear the voices. And people who are good at eye-ear linkages can immediately go to where the voice is coming from. People who are poor with eye-ear linkages, which includes a lot of people with convergence insufficiency, they don't know. They hear the voice, they hear the sound, but they're like, where is it? And that's what we test with the Z-Bell test. of how well a person knows where a sound is coming from. Most people have experienced hearing a siren and having no clue which direction the siren's coming. And that's what children do in school. They hear the teacher, they hear their name, they hear other stuff, but it's just floating in the air. They don't know where it's coming from. So they can't put visual attention where they need to put it.
Would you say that that is a little bit, so after brain injury, people often talk about feeling like they're disassociated a little bit too. And would that be a little bit of a key part of that?
That's a big key part of it. They don't feel like themselves. We see so many concussion patients, and most of them don't feel like themselves. And they go to the doctors who are comparing them to average.
Yep.
And saying, well, you're walking, talking, and thinking, so you're good. But they're like, but I was a 99th percentile person. Now I'm a 60th percentile person. It doesn't matter that I'm better than average. I used to be, really good. I'm not me. We hear that all the time. I'm not me. Get me back to me. And it depends on who they were beforehand, because some people previous to their concussions were detail oriented and they converged really well and on specific details. Then they get the concussion and there's something in this long chain of events that's disrupted and they can't converge anymore easily and they just don't feel like themselves. Other people before the concussions were never good at converging, never bothered, paying attention to details, and they were just glimpsing all their lives. And then so when they lose that ability, they don't care so much and it's much easier for them to recover. So it really depends on who you were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that whole disassociation is so common. I know I felt that for quite a long time, like almost out of body, or you're floating and everything's just very disconnected.
That's what Clark Elliott had written in The Ghost in My Brain. He wrote about his ghost coming back into him and finally like reuniting with his old self.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can take a long time to get to the right doctors who can help you. And so that's why you're here. So what are some of the things you do to help your patients who are suffering with this?
We pinpoint which brain pathway is actually having the problem. So there's the retina is connected to different seeing centers and then different thinking centers. So we would have patients visualize. Some of them, like when you're reading, some patients visualize images, some people hear characters talking. So we would see which ones the patients did before the concussion, which ones they're doing after. That would be an internal source. Then we would check external processing, how they judge space with ears and eyes. And we would first try to link the eyes and ears together so their judgment of space is appropriate. And then after that, we would work with thinking skills and perception and have them be able to multitask again. Everybody has kind of a mental desktop in their head and disrupted after a concussion or it shrinks. So we would try to rebuild it. We would put new brain pathways in by giving them rehearsal of using their eyes a whole different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and your eyes are something you just take for granted, that they work, that they do what they're supposed to do. And when you've had a brain injury or something else that disrupts it, it's so challenging. Because I just remember, like, I could literally read, I could tell you what the word was, but I couldn't comprehend a sentence. And I was an avid reader and I heard the characters in my head. That was me. And so, it's incredibly frustrating after a brain injury and you have doctors telling you, oh, you're fine. You can walk and talk. You're good. And so that's why it's so important to know that doctors like you do exist. And the Mind Eye Institute, you're located in Chicago. And if someone is interested in working with you, how do they get in touch with you?
They would go on mindeye.com. That's our website. Or they could write to info@mindeye.com. That's the easiest way. Or our phone number is 847-501-2020. Mayday 2020, 501 is Mayday.
I love that. That's easy to remember. Well, for some of us. And all of your information is below this video. So if you're interested in connecting with Dr. Zelinsky, just check out the link below this video. And also please comment. Let us know what you thought of today's information. And if you're having convergence insufficiency and didn't know what it was, and now you have more questions. So Dr. Zelinsky, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure to see you again and have you part of our concussion discussions.
Thank you, Amy. Nice to see you again, too.
And thank you, everyone, and I will see you in the next episode.